Hi, everybody. Andrew Champagne alongside JD Fox for this week's edition of Champagne and JD. As usual, we've got a terrific guest this week. And JD, as usual, our guest needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway because that's just the kind of guy I am. He's been behind the mic at Mountaineer since 2004, but perhaps most notably, his face is on every wanted poster in every moth colony in the lower 48 states. We are excited to welcome Peter Berry to the show this week. Peter, thanks for coming on, man.
Hello, guys. How are you? Yeah, and not just a moth, it was a tiger moth. And
Oh,
it wasn't an insect, it was one of those
the
fighter
big
planes. So
suckers.
we're going to, being Australian, I'm allowed to embellish a little bit more all the time. So we've just gradually upped that to a fighter plane, a tiger moth. Yeah.
Well, Peter, we appreciate you joining us from an undisclosed location because, in the eyes of Moths, you are currently a fugitive from justice. So, we're going to cover a lot of ground in this interview, and it's going to be the first of a series of interviews that we're doing, as it would sound as though there is a demolition derby going on in the parking garage behind me. Really have no
Oh,
idea what the heck's going on, but you know what? We're going to go through it because this is live TV. So,
okay.
this is going to be one of the first in a series of interviews that we're doing with track announcers, a profession that I have the utmost respect for because I could never do it, like ever. It's one of the few jobs on that side of the racetrack that I have never had an interest in doing simply because I realized if I made one mistake, it would be completely in my head and it would take me 10 minutes to get it out. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for the people that do it. And I guess the very first question that I have is, and I guess the question that people in the parking garage have behind me because the car alarm won't stop, is, how did you get started as a track announcer?
Well, when I was 14, I went to a race calling academy in Melbourne. We had two at that time. I think they started in the late 60s. I went there in the 70s. I was still at school. Every Tuesday and Friday night, I would go into town, and so there were race calling schools. I don't know if they had them in other states. But anyway, I went there from age 14 till 17. Most kids in Australia growing up, at least when I was a child there, want to be a race caller. That's what they want to be because it's such a big sport. It's bigger than your four major sports here put together, multiplied by infinity, and that's horse racing. You're going to work or school or something on public transport in the morning. More than likely, the kids are going to be talking about which horses are running that day, and they know all about every horse pretty much in the country. And during class, they'll be listening to races. You used to put a little transistor radio in your pocket and run the cord down here, and then you would just during class listen to the races like that. I was the class bookie in my class, and I'd take bets during class. And I was the one mostly listening to the races, and then I would signal the results across the. Anyway, that's the first of many times I'll be going off track there, but so I did that for 3 years. But then when I was 17, I got the chance to join what was then the number one newspaper in the world, the Age newspaper in Melbourne. And they used to have about 400 applications every year to become a cadet journalist, and they would pick 4 or 5, something like that. I didn't even apply. I'd been doing some writing for suburban newspapers, and so they came to me and said, would you be interested in a cadetship, and started me off as a second year cadet at age 17. And with race calling, I mean, there were so many great race callers there, as there still are. It really wasn't a tough decision because all I would have been doing would be calling a country meeting on a Saturday. So I went into journalism. So I was at the Age until 88. then moved to Los Angeles, and I still worked for that newspaper as their US sports correspondent. So I just got to travel all around the country, cover whatever sporting event I wanted to. And so I reported on that, and I had a weekly sports column, and I was doing radio for Australia. Then eventually, that wasn't it wasn't enough to fill my days. So I was looking for something else, and I was doing a radio show in Los Angeles at the time, and I saw an ad for Figs Form. They wanted like an editor for Figs Form in Long Beach. It had already started in New York, but they wanted to open an office in Long Beach. So I applied and got that job, and that was short-lived. And that kind of morphed into the Racing Times. And so Steve Chris came out and interviewed me for that. So they made me the deputy West Coast editor behind Privman. Clearly, it should have been the other way around, but anyway, whatever.
Jay's a buddy of mine, like him a lot.
I know, and mine. We often walk into libraries and do some things that we don't do anymore. But anyway,
there are so many ways I could take that.
He might tell you more about that. But we used to have fun in libraries, Jay and I. Anyway, so then everybody got fired from the Racing Times one day. The Racing Form bought out the Racing Times. I think the Racing Times was far superior. But anyway, so I was the only one they kept on at the racing at DRF. So I went to DRF. I was a news editor there until '88. So we were in Koreatown at the Racing Form up until like right after the Rodney King riots. So then we moved to Phoenix, Camelback and 24th Street there, diagonally across from the mall. And then in '88, they decided they were going to close the Phoenix office and move to New York. And I didn't want to. I liked Phoenix, and I didn't want to move out east. My wife was living in Los Angeles. She was a drug and alcohol and sex and gambling counselor. She didn't do all those things. She was a counselor. And so we wanted to stay fairly close. So I decided to stay in Phoenix and just did a bit of writing and whatnot. Honestly, I can't actually remember what I did for 2 years. I hate to think, but, Luke Kreitmoss called me one day and said, hey, there's a job open up at Arapahoe, and thought you might be interested in sending them a tape. He knew that I'd been interested. I'd called a couple of races at Turf Paradise, and going around the country visiting some race caller friends of mine, I'd call some races here and there, just because, I did. And I called when Let's Elope came out from Australia at first. I called her races live to Australia. Hollywood Park was the first one, which she won. And then there was then she ran at Santa Anita, and then she ran at Del Mar. I think flawlessly beat her at Del Mar. So those three, I call those three races live to Australia, and just other places around the country, Atacad Park and Santa Fe Downs and things like that. So Luke knew I was interested, so I applied for the job at Arapahoe, and I got that. It was only 3 months, and then so I had a great time up there, and they invited me back again the next year, and I thought, oh, okay, so this is weird at my age now, doing what I wanted to do 30 years ago. and then Sunray was looking for an announcer, so I did Arapaho and Sunray that year, and then Mountaineer was looking for an announcer. Jim Dolan, who'd been at Mountaineer for a long time, had put in his resignation, but something was misunderstood with his letter. He meant to give 12 months notice, but management misread it and thought he wanted to leave straight away.
Oh,
Like it was a year difference. So they advertised and flew me out there, and it was funny because on my last day of Sunray, so I drove from Farmington, New Mexico, back to Scottsdale. Next morning, I flew out to Pittsburgh to audition at Mountaineer. Then the next day, I flew back to Phoenix for one night. I had to call some goldfish races at Gilligan's in Scottsdale. And then the next morning, I flew to Dallas. This was Thanksgiving Eve. And, so I filled in a night at Lone Star for Michael Rona. And then I went back on Thursday. And then a few days after that, I got word that I'd got the job at Mountaineer. But I was not the first choice. I was very, very... Bill Downs was the first choice. He rejected it because it didn't pay much, still doesn't. And I rejected it at first because it didn't pay much and still doesn't. But then I asked a few people and said, "Oh, you're mad. What do you want to do? Get your foot in the door, and then you'll, be able to kick on to something else." And this is my 17th year there, so I can't. I think they put up one of those like electric dog fences or something. I can't. It's like during our off time, I was able to fill in at some other tracks, Charlestown, and I did a Buffalo Harness in 2016. Most of that meet. And somewhere else, Louisiana Downs Quarter Horses, and that was it. So it's really, I wanted to do it from when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I was lucky enough to go to the Race Calling Academy there. They had usually 6 people at a time, and but then I got into journalism, which, I still got to get to go to the races most days. I just wasn't calling them. And so eventually, everything's just come full circle. And now I'm Twitter and Facebook are perfect for me because I kind of got sick of writing long form stuff. Yeah. So this USA Today style things, I was almost disappointed when Twitter doubled the number of characters because I was very good at getting everything into 140, and then, I flesh it out. I usually just copy and paste it into Facebook. But so it's good that I can still have my mind going. Was what you're saying about, did you just say that I'm the first in a line of race callers you're going to have on? Are you going in alphabetical order?
No, we're not. In fact, if we were going in alphabetical order, the guy that we're having in either 3 or 4 weeks would be first. But we're saving him. Yes, we're saving him when the championship meet starts. And also, I need to come up with enough appropriate, funny lines about the Often Pacing horse he hates. So we're going to have some fun in a couple of weeks with him. Sorry, JJ.
Often Pacing?
Yes, Often Pacing is a game you can play on your phone. What it is, it's a harness racing management game where you can have your own stable of horses and breed your own horses. Well, I caught a monster one year and I named him after my cat, and Pete Aiello hates it when I talk about that horse because that one horse has won more big races than his entire stable.
Well, I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Have you got? What was the name? What was your cat's name?
His name is Elliot, so the horse's name is King Elliot. He is now a sire, by the way, and for any often pacing players out there, he will be available for $10,000 at the start of the new year, which I believe comes around November 20th, 21st, 22nd, thereabouts.
Okay, well, I'm going to look that up. I haven't heard of that game, and
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's a gas.
Yeah, and they
Okay.
have a thoroughbred version now with Turf Dynasty that's similar, but not harness horses, thoroughbred horses. They do a lot. The often pacing team's done a great job with that. But yes, Pete Aiello hates every mention of your cat or the horse. I think
Yes.
now they're equally there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we've had Matt Dinnerman on early in the podcast run, but we know a lot of track
yes.
announcers. But we haven't really had a chance to spotlight them, so now is kind of the time. And really, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on, obviously, is the road that you took to it, but also the stories along the way, because the way you have with words and race calls, obviously has drawn some attention to some of your calls over the years. But it's kind of bringing a bit of levity to the race calls sometimes when we've got a short field and you've got a horse winning by 50 lengths. I mean, you're going to call it like you see it. And you've obviously had some chances with some marathon races in the past that they've ran at Mountaineer.
You know what? We've got, a matter of fact, we've got a 1 3/4 race on Sunday night, and there's a horse in it by the name of Darren's Fortune, who won by 23 3/4 on a muddy track 3 weeks ago. And I've never seen this in the program at Mountaineer, but maybe I did it with Cutting Edge Tech, but they've got him at 1 to 5 on the morning line.
Ooh.
And, I did see he should be, he should be, it should say 1 to 10 because that's what he'll pay, I guess. I mean, there's nothing in there, but yeah, the Theodore race is the one you're referring to.
Yeah.
And that was just, that was crazy because they gave the official winning margin at 49 3/4 lengths. And, I said 50, and I said it before they said it. I said it's 50 lengths, and then they said it's 49 3/4 officially. I'm like, well, really? You can't just make that 50? It was like this one. I said 24 for Darren's Fortune. They come back and say 23 3/4. They're not gonna let me have one of these. They're not. You watch this race 6 at Mountaineer on Sunday. This thing will probably win by anything. And whatever margin I give it, if I say 31 1/4 lengths, it'll come back at 31 or 31 1/2. You watch. You put your money on that. And but I'm going to make a note here. King Elliot is going to get a mention in one of these races by mistake on Sunday night.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely. I might even say often pacing instead of they're often racing, just to annoy Aiello a little bit more. He seems like an excitable young man.
A little bit, yeah. Let's just say there's a reason we connected as well as we did. That cat is his second least favorite cat. His first least favorite cat is the one profiled in a good friend of the show and a really good friend of mine. Joe Nevels does a series of Facebook posts talking about a cat that he refers to as the little old man from next door. Pete Aiello is convinced that it is a gigantic conspiracy with regard to this cat and that it's just a ploy for something. But he's going all Robert Stack Unsolved Mysteries on it, and it's quite hysterical. But yes, he, for some reason, is not a fan of things that are either feline or named after felines and getting attention.
I want to bring the conversation back to Theodore because
that's a good idea, JD. Thank you for
that was a crazy 2-race sequence because he wins at Mountaineer by that margin and then goes to Mahoning Valley and wins by 32 and was not the favorite in either race.
No. I can't remember who was, but you are correct. He wasn't. I'd forgotten about that.
50, and then is not the favorite.
I mean, okay, for the first one, you'd say, all right, okay. But after you win by 50, you're supposed to run favourite. I don't care who you're up against. But, Yeah, that was one of those things. Very strange area, around there. And and I got to say that I really do feel for the people there at Mahoning Valley and Zia Park and Charlestown, what they're going through there. But the grace of God goes Mountaineer. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? We race until December the 26th, and fingers crossed. Yeah. So sorry for all those guys, what they're going through. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the reason we started this show was to have fun conversations like this during COVID and give people something to be excited about from a racing standpoint. So it really seems like we're coming back around to that. And it's unfortunate. Golden Gate earlier today shut down for a week.
Yes, I forgot about Golden Gate, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, that's the track 30 minutes away from me. I had a chat with a couple of people earlier today. I mean, 24 people on the backstretch wound up testing positive. They shut down for a week. It's really sad, and you just hope that that things wind up correcting themselves over the course of this. But that's not going to happen unless everybody plays their part. So, public service announcement out there: do your part. Don't do anything stupid. Do what you can. With a little bit of luck, we'll get through this to where there's a vaccine in a couple of months. Knock on wood. I'm trying to find whatever wood I can find here. Oh, this is a closet. This works.
You left yourself open for a joke then, but I'm steering clear of it.
It's okay. I have heard every single. I got you.
Okay. No.
All right. But JD is partial to the Theodore story. And he would mention that he was really excited about that. I've already mentioned the story that I want to hear. Is there like a moth's nest in the announcer's booth at Mountaineer? Because there's a couple of videos out there where it seems like moths go on kamikaze missions mid-race.
Last year I went 0 for moths last year, but they usually set the line at maybe like 1.5 every year. But before the moths, my first year, I got hit, true story, by a bat. A bat hit me in the head, and my headset kind of got skewed a bit, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a pigeon or a seagull or something. I didn't know what it was. But then the stewards, one of the stewards said, "Oh, do you see that bat was flying close to us?" I'm like, "How close?" Said, "Well, it banged into the window." And I said, "Well, I got hit. I thought it was a bird." I said, "No, that was the bat." So the bat hit me, and I thought that they didn't run into things. I thought that, I know they're blind, but this hit me. It wasn't until but then about maybe a year later, and when I would leave or arrive at Mountaineer every night, I'd get my briefcase, and I'd walk down the catwalk like this, because there were bats everywhere. So you'd be walking like this, da-da-da-da. I didn't want to get hit again by a bat, but they disappeared after about 2 years, and then the moths took over. And I've probably swallowed, no, hang on. I've swallowed 2, but into my mouth have gone about 10. Ooh. Usually about 10. I can spit them out quickly, but I've swallowed 2, and one in particular there that's on YouTube. I think there were 2 on YouTube.
Yeah.
This one, it's not. This one was a lot. This one I felt like fluttering going down my. Is it esophagus? Where's your esophagus? Is that what
maybe? I don't know.
I don't know. Well, I think it went down there. It's probably still inside me for all I know. I wasn't checking, but my concern was that, if a moth goes down there and can live a certain length of time, and then another one comes in the next day, and you got a male and a female, and there's still somehow like that they could be breeding in there. And I'll be calling a race one day, and all of a sudden there could be like moths flying out of my mouth, which might make more sense than some of the things I say during a race call, because I've got people say, "Oh, how do you do this?" Yeah, I don't know. I've never watched a replay. The only time I've watched a replay is the things I see on YouTube. I never go back and watch the race replays because it's like, hey, there's nothing I can do about it. At least in writing, go back and do something. But I guess I've been lucky that I've never had to re-record anything like calling a wrong horse winning a race, like a entry mate or something like that. So I never listen to my races because I don't want to know. I don't really care what I said, and I don't plan anything. And usually when I'm saying something, I'll be thinking of something else, and it's just kind of automatic. You just kind of go into a robotic, like a trance. So you call it with which part of your brain is the one that is for reasoning, and the other one. See, I can't even. I get my brains mixed up. But so I'm automatic pilot for calling the races, which is why sometimes some things will come out that maybe shouldn't, and that's I've heard why some tracks won't. They don't want anything to do with me because I don't know half the time what I'm saying, and I don't care really. I mean, I don't use bad language. I don't make any overt sexual references. There might be an occasion. In my third year, we had a horse called Polish Penis that ran. Yeah, Pianist. Now, I think you say pianist. I don't know if you say pianist here, but
Pianist or pianist, yeah.
Yeah, penis. Penis. So we had Polish penis, and everybody thought I was not referring to the. But I wasn't going to change the way I said it because that's how I learned how to say it.
Right.
But one time I did say penis, just for the hell of it, to amuse myself. Sometimes race callers say stuff just to keep themselves and other race callers amused. For me, sometimes I just want to amuse myself and keep myself, up. You got to keep your mind going, and we're not allowed to drink on the job. We're not permitted to drink on the job, and I don't.
Right.
Some have over the years, and have walked off halfway through a card because they were drunk and didn't care. But that's not me. Right. I live and breathe Mountaineer, and I would never do something like that. Anyway, I just drink Perrier water now anyway, so it doesn't matter. That doesn't do anything. That gets me a bit loopy anyway. I just like sticking to the, Xanax and Klonopin and stuff like that. The happy pills.
Yeah, better life through chemistry, as David Faherty puts it.
Yeah, does he say that?
Yeah, he's written that in a couple of his books. He says he is all for a better life through chemistry.
Well, good on him. I'll have to read those books. Yeah. No, but that's stuff. And it's it's relaxing, and I get a little bit of anxiety sometimes. Not calling races. I'm never more relaxed than when I call a race, right. But I get anxious about who I might run into from getting out of my car to getting up to the booth. Who can I want to avoid everybody, because they'll ask you the dumbest questions, a lot of people don't like me anyway, so I try to avoid them. I go in different ways, so I need to take something to give myself the courage, right, to go and do this job, and do it to the best of my ability. Wow. Well, but that's why they have gone.
No, I was just going to say you do it incredibly well. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been there for 16, 17 years. Somebody would have figured out a reason to run you out the door.
Well, I don't. We've had a lot of changes in ownership since I've been there. I'm not saying that I'm the reason. What I can say is the current owners, Century, have been, and I knew this coming in, have been the best that we've had.
That's great.
At least since when Ted Arnaud had the place. But all the other fly-by-night Johnnies that came in knew nothing about racing, couldn't care less. You know what? One year, Kentucky Derby Day, they had a hat contest, right? They had a hat contest. Lady wearing the best hat wins some great prize. Kentucky Derby Day, we're open Kentucky Derby Day. Where do they have the hat contest? At the casino. At the casino, not at the racetrack. Hello?
Wow.
Oh. So this is like some of the stuff that these other owners would come up with. It's like, oh, man, you're off your nut. But anyway, so you know, you had these women coming to the track. It's like, where do you sign up for the hat contest? It's at the casino. You'll have to get back on the little bus trolley and go back around it. It's not at the track. It's not at the track. Not at the track. But anyway, they've been run out of town. They couldn't handle it. So I don't think we've had a hat contest since then anyway. Maybe they have. It doesn't matter. Maybe they have it somewhere else. I don't know.
They should, and you should have to wear a hat as well. I want to see that. I have
well,
seen
you know,
headwear today.
Yeah, well, yes. Now, did you like that look?
I did. I thought it was nice. My father said it looked like something out of a Benny Hill thing.
Well, it was. I was going for the '60s band look. You know, a lot of they wore the hair like that.
I immediately thought Monkeys, personally,
well,
as a parody of '60s.
Yeah. I looked at that. Peter Talk was I think the video you sent there, but no, if you look at there was a band in Australia in the '60s by the name of Masters Apprentices. You wouldn't have heard of them over here. I don't think they had any hits or anything like that, but they wore their hair like that. And the guy, when what was the band? Dandy Warhols. When they started, the singer wore his hair like that. I mean, I think he's worn his hair a different style like every few months, but during one of his periods, he wore his hair exactly like that. I think that's when I saw him a couple of times, and I'm like, well, this is a good look. I thought this looks all right. You know, I was gonna wear it. Then my wife's like, oh, I don't know. I said, well, my boss might be watching this. She said, well, you better not. You know, because not that he'd have anything else to find a problem with anything else I've said tonight. You know,
I want to share, Peter, because obviously you talked about the Moth situation and some of those things that have ended up on YouTube. I'm going to talk about my most embarrassing moment from my broadcast career, and this is not at the racetrack. Andrew's going to appreciate this. So I'm at Benedetti Diamond, which is in San Francisco, home of the USF Dons baseball field. And in the old configuration, the press box was on top of the third base dugout. So I'm there broadcasting the game. And one of the players from the team that I'm broadcasting for, right-handed batter, so he's facing away from me, takes an off-speed pitch and fouls it back. It bangs off the window of the press box directly onto my chest while I'm broadcasting. So I take a loud thud, loud thud makes a horrible noise, and then I just keep going. Now, the broadcaster from the opposing team, Ryan McCurry, who's now a higher up at the WCC, one of my good friends, just busts out on the floor laughing because he didn't find the fact that it hit me funny. He just found the fact that I chose to completely no-sell it, even though I made like the grossest noise humanly possible on a broadcast and just keep going. He found that hilarious to where I finished that half inning. He did not. He was on the floor laughing for like a good 10 minutes. So that's my most embarrassing, funniest broadcast related story. Andrew, you have a question?
No, I've got a story of my own that I think you both very much appreciate. So my senior year at college, I was one half of the play-by-play color commentary football broadcasting team at Ithaca College. Go Bombers.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. So there was one game that we did where we had to, it was actually our longest road trip of the season, was a 5-hour car ride down to Frostburg State to play Maryland, western part of Maryland, beautiful part of the East Coast, by the way. If you haven't been, it's lovely. There's not a lot of people there. It's largely untouched. It's pretty cool. Well, we get there and we try 3 different phone lines. All of them fail. Every last one of them. Now, the guy that I was with, that was the other part of the team, is a guy that some of you out there might recognize the name of. His name is Josh Getzoff, and he does a lot of work with the Pittsburgh Penguins hockey team now. He's got a sock drawer full of Stanley Cup rings. I've won the Pink Sheet handicapping title 4 times. We're a very distinguished duo here. So he had one of the first ones of these. He had one of the first smartphones, enough to where like long distance charges were still a thing.
Yes.
Well, he wound up putting that down in between us, and we wound up bobbing our heads back and forth, calling a 2-man broadcast via speakerphone in the Frostburg State press box. It was literally something like, handoff goes to Ruggiero up the middle, gain of 2 yards, da-da-da-da. He'd pick his head up. I'd put mine down talking about the play and the defensive coverage and the situation that was going on. We did not hit our heads once. Not once. It was a fantastic thing. And then we drove the 5 hours back to Ithaca.
That's amazing.
It was a long day. And the worst part of that situation was, and any broadcaster can identify this, one of the greatest things I have ever heard from anybody is, if it's not catered, it's not journalism. Well, Frostburg State had Aramark, the food distributor company. Because of their contract with Aramark, if they didn't go through Aramark for food for the press box, they couldn't serve anything.
Oh.
So they didn't serve anything.
Oh.
We were pretty pissed.
Oh, my goodness. It's funny you say, just extrapolating on that a little, once a year in Australia, they have a Greyhound race where it's about a 500-yard race, and they use 6 announcers. They hand off the microphone, 6 callers in the one race. It's quite something.
Wow.
And I think they've done it twice, and there hasn't been a problem. 2 years ago, I was feeling a bit dizzy before a race, and they sent the paramedics up and said I should go to hospital, and I said they're approaching the gate. Yeah, I can't go anywhere. They said, we really think you should go to the hospital. You're not well. So we're going to have to give you an EKG. I'm like, well, I'm calling this race. So I took my shirt off, and they put the things on me, and they put the monitor there. And so I'm like, I'm calling the race, and I'm looking at the monitor, doing all of this. So I was getting a heart test, and and I'm making sure that line wasn't flat, and I was still going. And as they got up there, I could kind of see with this. That's like what I said. You just kind of call the race automatically, so you can be having an EKG or anything at the same time, and you're still gonna be able to. Nobody would know about it unless I told you. You could be doing anything during a race, as long as you just shut half your brain down. And and in Australia, sometimes some announcers have been doing other things while the race is on too. So that doesn't happen here, as far as I know.
That we know of.
That we know of. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. It's kind of a rite of passage in Australia, but I've not really called in Australia, just a couple of races. So. And I was too young. I was 14. So, yeah. Have you just all frozen? Oh, no. Okay.
No, we're here. You haven't gotten rid of us yet, Peter.
I thought you were all frozen.
So,
yeah, the one thing I'll say to that point is, obviously in the U.S. we're used to, depending on your state and the signal coverage, you would get between 4 and 6 Australian races, and now obviously Sky Racing World has put the harness product out there. But there's a lot more tracks than that happen, and if you think some of the tracks that you see are more country tracks, there are some very, very, very country tracks that you don't get to see. And
sure.
That's where some of those things tend to happen, so we hear.
Yeah, they do. I've actually driven in 7 races down there, and at one of the tracks they go around before the race and like get the cow. There'll be no outside rails, so they have to shoo the cows away and all of that sort of thing. And you will have seen sometimes kangaroos running next to the horses. We have some deer delays at Mountaineer. We've never had a problem with them, interfering with the horses.
Thank goodness.
But we're always on the yes. There's some wild and crazy stuff that happens down there. But no more crazy. What, you got crocodiles coming onto the track in Florida? I mean, we don't have that, or alligators or whatever they are.
Delta had a croc in the infield.
Yeah, but wasn't there? I think there was one track, an alligator or a crocodile came onto the track between races. I'm like, okay, well, you win. We can't beat that. No, not at all.
Not at all whatsoever.
No.
So, as we've already mentioned, it's been a tricky year for a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Obviously, every track is finding different ways and different methods to be able to run this year with the COVID-19 situation, what it is. What has it been like for you, Peter, at Mountaineer? What sort of things have people put in place, safeguards to ensure that, hey, we still have a racing product for people to enjoy?
Yeah, well, everybody. So we didn't have crowds there for initially when we came back.
Right.
Then when they came back, everybody has to wear a mask in the grandstand. We tried to do it outside as well, but nobody. I mean, yeah, you're outside. The people aren't. They're just not going to do it. Speaking personally, I get my temperature taken as soon as I arrive at work every day. As do all the employees, jockeys, valets, all the track work. Everybody gets tested. We haven't had a problem there yet. And that's just by, as I said, the grace of God. Mahoning Valley, just up the road. In fact, just over my right, or my right, your left, I don't know. I'm walking distance to Mahoning Valley, but I could never even get in there and get an interview. But anyway, that guy's retired. But it's just been so tough as far as affecting the crowd. Mountaineer doesn't get big crowds, except on Derby Day, which we didn't have this year. For those obvious for the COVID, because there would have been too many people. That was simply the reason for that. Hopefully everything will be okay and we can go back to normal next year. But I've just got my fingers crossed that we've applied for our dates for next year, same as this year, and we would go back, I guess, the end of April. And hopefully we've got the vaccine ready to go. I think that's kind of what they're saying, 5 to 6 months maybe. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, they're saying high-risk people may get a version of the vaccine in March and others potentially get it in April. That's what Dr. Fauci said a couple of days ago.
Yes.
So we'll see. Fingers, toes, and eyes all crossed. Not only that we get the vaccine, but that it absolutely works. One thing on a happier note, though, you mentioned the West Virginia Derby. And that is a race that has always held a place in my heart because young Andrew picked one of his first bombs ever in a renewal of that race many, many, many years ago.
Oh?
Before you got there, there was a horse named Western Pride who
before me,
in to the West Virginia Derby,
Yeah.
got on the lead and forgot to stop. I think it was one of the kinds of days where like 3 or 4 track records got broken and Early Speed was playing very, very well. He wound up being a pretty nice horse that won a couple of graded stakes races, but he was 16, 17, 18 to 1. I wanted to play him because my dad at the time had a UBet account. You guys remember UBet? That's how long ago this was. And
Did he go and run the World Cup?
he ran in a bunch of big spots.
I know he ran 4th in something. It might have been a Breeders' Cup Classic or so. I know he ran 4th in a huge race.
Yeah, I know he went to California at least once. Please don't ask me how I remember that. You can't remember what I had for lunch today. I have no idea how that happened. But I remember it was on UBet. I remember my dad and I were watching. If it was 2000 or 2001, I was 12, 13 years old. That's how long ago this was. I'm old, really painstakingly old.
Right.
But I remember I liked the horse. My dad's going to kill me for this if he watches, but my dad did not like the horse. And then the horse comes home, not just wins, but is much the best. One of those, just go straight out to the front and forget to stop kind of things. But I still remember that. Still enjoy handicapping Mountaineer when I can. If you've never seen a race for Mountaineer before, by all means, take a look. It's a funky configuration to the track with the home stretch at the weird angles.
Right.
So
Yep.
keep that in mind. By the way, before we go into anything further, with the stretch at that configuration, did that throw you off at all when you first had the job before you got used to it?
No, what threw me off was the night I went for the audition, and Jim Dolan was standing in just to my left, and I didn't even get a good chance to look at the track. And when they come around the turn, there's a big light pole. A light pole. You can't see the horses when they come around the turn. I've got TV monitors here and here because when it's snowing, you can't have the window open, so you can't lean out. So you need a monitor here and a monitor here. So when the horses come around the turn, if I'm looking, I can't see them. So I've got to look at the monitor just briefly. I hate taking my eyes off the horses, but you can't. It's like they're running into behind trees, or it's foggy or something like that. But yeah, that's. But I'm not saying that that's the configuration. I think that I don't know that many tracks have the track announcer in mind when they're building a track.
They should, though.
The announcer's booth at Buffalo Harness is like it's several zip codes from the track. I mean, I got caught a few times. I'm like, we need a monitor here because they run right away from here. It's 100 yards before the finish. It's terrible. Wow. I go, oh man, it's shocking. I love calling the harness, and I loved my time at Buffalo. But that took some real adjusting to that. Mountaineer's all right. I mean, you're not right on the line. Maybe 20 yards or so before it, and all in all, I mean, it's a very small booth. My favourite so far has been Lone Star out of all the ones I've been to. But yeah, I'd like to be. So I've got a 5-month gap now, but for races, but with tracks shutting down, it's so hard to get jobs in the winter because there are just not a lot of tracks running, and there are not too many announcers around anymore. Plus, I like to stay at home. I've got an 11-year-old son, and he just went back to school. He was homeschooling, and he just went back to school this week. And just before we went on air, I got a text from his teacher. I haven't even told my wife yet that there was another COVID positive there today. So I'm telling you guys, and I haven't told her yet. I'll tell her as soon as I.
Yes. This was all on him.
But it is the week.
This is not our fault.
Yeah, she might say something about priorities and stuff, but anyway,
I'll bring us back full circle here. So I did have time to look at Western Pride, and Western
was that
Pride
Dana Whitney?
Did run in the 2002 Dubai World Cup, the year Street Cry won, and won a whole bunch of races. West Virginia Derby, followed it up by the Ohio Derby, the Calder Derby, finished second in the Santa Anita Handicap, second in the Pimlico Special. So really quality horse, but ran in the World Cup. So that
Does it say Dana? Did it say there? Was it Dana Whitney that rode him in West Virginia? Has it got the riders there?
That sounds right, but that may just be because Dana Whitney won about 11,000 races.
Yeah, he won every race right when I started, and then Parker was
Dana Whitney.
Yep, Dana. Yeah, he was a great rider, and then Parker, of course, and now Quinones, who's injured, and it's a closer race this year to see who wins. It's usually a runaway, but it might go down to the wire this time.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting, and it's certainly going to be something that I'm going to watch, and not just because you mentioned King Elliott.
Shout out. Well, what I'm going to do is I've got to find, see if there's a horse. There's not going to be a horse with Elliott in its name, but there's got to be King something that we can.
I would hope so. I mean, if there's some confident breeder somewhere that names his horse a King because he thinks it can run.
Yeah, or just showing more speed than King Elliot, or running on like King Elliot, or because if a horse is going very fast in Australia, we'll say he's going like a scalded cat. I'll just say he's going like, a scalded King Elliot or something. I'll throw something in that'll have everybody confused.
I'm sure it'll have Pete Aliello very confused if he
yes,
your outputs going.
Yeah, I know he tunes into Mountaineer a fair bit, so
yes.
Don't tell him he can get that surprise. Oh, well, he'll watch the show. He'll know.
I would hope he watches the show. I mean, he's coming on in a couple of weeks, so we'll see what happens there. But regardless, this has been a lot of fun. We are now on to a segment of the show that we call our final thought. Peter, we're going to defer the floor to you first. And guys, at the end, I actually have something that literally just came over on my phone. It's complete breaking news, and at least one of you is going to laugh really, really hard at what I've just found out. But Peter, the floor is yours. Literally anything you want as far as anything to potentially promote, where people can follow you on social media, any plugs you want to make, the floor is yours.
Well, I do appreciate all the Mountaineer followers. I know we're not an A track or a B track. I think we're a solid C track. I know that I think that we have one of the really, really great analysts in Mark Patterson. He's like Rain Man. I mean, everything is in his head. I'm just like blown away by the things he remembers and he knows. And we do have this group called Mountaineer Nation, and they're such loyal followers. So I'd certainly like to thank them. I wouldn't necessarily like to thank the guy who thinks it's funny to put $5,000 on a horse early in betting, so people will get confused about who they should bet on.
Bad form.
Yeah, I won't make any mention of the odds or who the favourite is during a race again. I've been burned a couple of times so I've dropped that. And again, I just wanted to extend my best wishes to the people now at the 4 tracks that we know so far have closed. And I know that if we closed for a couple of weeks, it would be devastating. And so just best wishes to everybody out there, and hang tough, and things will get better. For sure. Things will get better. Yep.
Here's hoping. JD, you next.
Okay, I will very quickly say that I have an 8-tweet thread recapping the Arizona Racing Commission meeting this week. I'm not going to talk about that on the show because I'm not allowed to get mad on this show, at least not often.
As mad as you want.
I'm putting that in place, so check me out on Twitter as always at Horse Tickets. And the other thing I'll say is it's been great working. I've gotten to meet over the course of this year and worked with some great people, and it seems like everybody has October, November birthdays. So if you're in horse racing, it seems like you have to have an October or November birthday. But I've been trying to keep up with horse racing birthdays now as a thing, because we've got to look for positives right now. A lot of negativity out there. I'm trying to celebrate my friends in horse racing, so we're doing a pretty good job of that. And that's Andrew.
November 5th. Just saying.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to a little bit. But all right, so you have breaking news that will apparently make me laugh.
Okay, well, actually, I've got 2 items, one of which is not breaking news. The other one is. The first one is Operation Gift Horse is back. If you are in the horse racing community and you're looking to do some good and spread a little bit of cheer, they're on Twitter. I've put a tweet out there. We're advertising the ways in which you can become part of this. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to do something nice for somebody else in the horse racing community. It's basically a Secret Santa kind of thing. The people that run this, Jason Beam and Teresa Gennaro, what they do is they take in everybody that's doing this. They randomly assign people, and you get somebody. Last year, Jason Beam got me. I have Longacre's drinking glasses in my cabinet. They're fantastic. I got a guy named Mike Goodrich, and I sent him some really cool horse racing socks that I'm hoping he's wearing. So if you want to be a part of that, by all means, go do that. Now, This
And I will say I got this from Jennifer Kelly last year, this great spectacular bid book. And this is a great read by Peter Lee. And obviously Jennifer Kelly has her books, and we just had her on recently. So that was my introduction to her. So we became fast friends, and she's been on the show. So it's a great program. And Teresa and Jason really do a lot of work to make sure it happens. So that's something that both myself and Andrew really believe in. So if you haven't heard of it, we'll have information on our social media accounts, and feel free to join. And you can make some great connections in the horse racing community, just like I did with Jennifer last year.
Yep. And now we're going straight into the abyss. JD, what would be the most destructive occupation I could potentially have?
Professional bowler.
You're not wrong, but I more so meant destructive to society as opposed to destructive to my right shoulder and right wrist. How about college professor? So here's the deal. I have just found this out thanks to Twitter direct messaging. In the past couple of months, I have been in contact with one of my favorite professors from Ithaca, who is now the interim dean at the Roy H. Park School of Communications. In January, not only am I giving a multi-hour presentation as part of a sports journalism class to 18 to 21-year-olds that have willingly signed up for this, but I am also going to teach a unit at an Ithaca College course.
Run, kids, run.
Wow.
I am so happy about this. And guys, you actually found out as we're taping this before I told my girlfriend, who is a third grade teacher. So now I get to tell her that we are an educational power couple.
Seems like we're both keeping late-breaking information from our better halves.
Yes, indeed.
And I think I'm going to get into trouble. I'm supposed to have gone and I got to go and feed Megan's llama. Megan Fedlovich has got a couple of llamas. We're neighbours, and I usually have them fed by this time of the night if she can't make it. So,
well, we'll let you go then, Peter. We really
no, it's okay.
The time.
They don't know what time it is.
Hey, we just don't want a stampede of llamas going onto your
Well, they know that
everything.
They know that Friday night is alfalfa night. They get more alfalfa on it. As the snow comes, they tend to get a bit more alfalfa during the winter because, well, there's no grass for them, so I have to get, we get hay, but because you're only supposed to give about 20% of the diet of a llama for alfalfa. 20% is about all they really need.
Yes, of course.
But I up it to about 30. I push the envelope during the winter for the llamas. That's what you do.
Hey, just be careful. You're living on the edge a little bit there, Peter.
I know I am. And they spit at me too.
Oh, they spit at you? That's rude.
Yeah, they spit at me. They don't like me.
I don't know what it is with llamas and horse racing.
They spit at me all the time. That's why she wants me to feed them.
A friend of mine in New York, Mike McAdam, who writes for the Schenectady.
Oh, you're frozen again.
He had a story whereby he could never support a horse named not a cat but a llama who ran in New York for a while because a llama spit in his face as a kid.
All right, I think we.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can hear Peter, but I think he might be frozen a little bit. But you know what? That's fine. We're ending on llamas.
Yeah.
Me being a college
Maybe my
professor,
battery's...
I can't end on a better note than that. So, you know what we're going to do? We're going to call it a night. Peter, thank you so much for taking the time to stick with us through some technical difficulties as we set this up. This has been absolutely fantastic, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the meet at Mountaineer.
Now I can hear you. Okay.
There we go.
That's great. So if you're doing them in alphabetical order, Rona will be last, right? I'll have great pleasure in telling him he'll be last.
Oh, I'm sure he'll lose a lot of sleep over that one.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much. We really
appreciate it. All right. No worries.
Thanks so much. And JD,
see you later.
Would you like to hit him with the catchphrase?
Oh.
Yep, I will. Everybody be safe out there. Stay off the beaches.
Have a good night, everybody.